You've heard the myths, but what if Egypt's gods of light weren't just stories? What if they had electricity and we were never meant to know? Because in the Temple of Dendera, there's a secret carved in stone, a light that might rewrite history itself. Welcome to Hidden History Unlocked. Follow if you believe the truth isn't lost, it's hidden, and leave your thoughts below. Because what you're about to see may change everything you thought you knew about ancient Egypt. Deep beneath the sands of Egypt lies a temple that has whispered the same question for over 2,000 years. How much did the ancients really know? The Temple of Dendera, a place built for the goddess Hathor, a goddess of love, of creation, and of light. But inside these walls, there is something that does not belong. Carved deep into stone, we find a shape no one expected, a massive glass bulb. Within it, a serpent, coiled like a filament. Below it, a rectangular box, what looks like a power source, and from it, a wire stretching to a figure holding the lamp as if it were alive. Egyptologists call it symbolic art. But what if it's not? What if this is something far more literal? What if thousands of years before Edison, before Tesla, before our civilization even existed, someone had already discovered electricity? They call it the Dendera Light, and it could be the spark that rewrites everything we know about history. The story begins in the late 1800s. French archaeologists, led by Auguste Mariette, unearthed the buried ruins of Dendera. As they brushed away the sand, their lanterns revealed something extraordinary, massive reliefs covering the walls, each showing the same strange device. Locals whispered that it was the light of the gods. The scientists, they didn't know what to think. Some claimed it was symbolic, a depiction of the myth of the serpent emerging from the lotus of creation. Others weren't so sure. To them, this looked too precise to be mere metaphor. A coiled element inside a bulb, a power source below. The scale of it, over a meter long, suggested a deliberate design. And if it truly represented a lamp, then someone in ancient Egypt had built technology thousands of years ahead of its time. But how? There were no copper wires found nearby, no generators, nothing that screamed electric, only stone and silence. Yet that silence felt like it was hiding something. Let's decode the carving itself. The bulb's shape, identical to what we now call a Crookes tube, an early form of vacuum bulb used in the 19th century. Inside, a serpent, the ancient Egyptian symbol for energy, motion, and life. But here it's not free-floating. It's trapped inside glass. To the right stands a priest, his hands grounded on a staff connected to the base, as if channeling current. Above them, hieroglyphs describe Harsamtis, the god emerging as a shining serpent from the lotus. A poetic image, they say. But the carving doesn't look poetic, it looks functional. Even the lotus base resembles an insulator. Could this be coincidence? Or were the artists carving something they had seen, something real? And if so, who showed it to them? What if the ancients didn't need our machines? What if they were the machines, living inside structures designed to channel the earth itself? In 1938, deep beneath the sands of Iraq, archaeologists uncovered something strange, a clay jar filled with copper, iron, and traces of acid. It produced voltage. We call it the Baghdad battery, a 2,000-year-old device that could generate electric current long before the word electricity even existed. Now imagine this. The Egyptians, with their mastery of stone, with copper, gold, and limestone, materials we now know can store and conduct energy, could have scaled this concept up, not for a lamp, but for an entire temple. The Great Pyramid's inner chambers contain granite filled with quartz crystal. Quartz vibrates when energy flows through it. The shafts within the pyramid are perfectly aligned to the Earth's magnetic north. The Nile, once flowing much closer, provided a natural conductor, pulsing electromagnetic energy into the limestone foundation. Some say the pyramids were tombs, but what if they were capacitors, energy hubs, collecting charge from the planet itself? The more we look, the less impossible it becomes. Ancient texts speak of temples that hum with life. Ancient walls glow faintly with a mysterious sheen, not paint, but a chemical compound we still can't reproduce. Is it all myth or fragments of a forgotten science, one that used resonance instead of combustion, sound instead of wire, frequency instead of fire? Maybe they didn't just light their temples. Maybe they lit the world. For decades, the Dendera Light was dismissed, called a symbol, a myth, the imagination of a culture obsessed with gods. But then, science decided to test it. In the late 1970s, a group of engineers from Austria and Germany recreated the carving, exactly as shown on the temple walls. They built the same bulb shape, using glass blown by hand, a copper rod at the center, and a sealed chamber filled with inert gas. When they connected it to a primitive power source, something as simple as a low-voltage generator, the serpent-shaped filament inside began to glow. No smoke, no flame, no oil, just light. It worked. The experiment proved that the design could function as a real lamp. Later, Japanese engineers repeated the test, using only ancient materials available in Egypt, copper, gold leaf, and salt water, to mimic the reaction of the Baghdad battery. Again, it lit up. Even more intriguing, the bulb's dimensions perfectly matched the Crookes tube, a device invented in 1879 to study electrons. 2,000 years after Dendera was built, how could an ancient civilization carve something that looked and functioned like a modern electrical lamp? Coincidence or memory? What if each discovery we make is not new, but something we are remembering? The light we call modern may have first been lit in Dendera. The more we uncover, the more one truth becomes clear. The priests of ancient Egypt were not merely worshippers. They were scientists, mathematicians, astronomers, keepers of a knowledge so advanced that even today we are still chasing their shadow. The alignments of Dendera, of Karnak, of Giza, all point not to random skies, but to constellations that shift only once in thousands of years. Why? Because they were watching the heavens, not as poets, but as engineers. To them, the stars were not gods. They were coordinates, maps in a cosmic grid, guiding the construction of temples that resonated with the Earth's vibration. Each chamber, each stone, tuned to a specific frequency, a network of resonance, designed not for prayer, but for power. And when light filled those halls, the priests would stand beneath it, chanting in tones that matched the hum of the chambers themselves. They believed they were communing with the divine. But perhaps they were synchronizing with something deeper, the natural frequency of the planet. Maybe their gods were never up there in the sky. Maybe their gods were energy itself. But if the ancients truly knew electricity, if they mastered resonance, light, and sound, why do our history books never mention it? Why do we still teach that they lit their temples with oil and flame? Because history is not written by those who discovered the truth. It's written by those who decided what we should believe. For centuries, archaeology has been controlled by a single narrative, that human civilization evolved slowly, step by step, from primitive to advanced. But what if the truth doesn't fit that story? What if progress isn't a line, but a circle? Each time humanity rises too high, it collapses, leaving behind only fragments that the next world calls mystery. When early researchers proposed the Dendera Light as ancient technology, they were laughed at. Their work was buried, their funding cut. Museums refused to display their reports. The carvings were labeled symbolic art. Case closed, but the carvings keep repeating. The same shapes, the same serpents, appearing not only in Egypt, but in Sumer, in India, even in pre-Incan Peru. Different worlds, same knowledge, same language of light. Maybe they didn't want us to see the pattern, because once we do, we begin to question everything. If ancient people had power, if they knew electricity, then the story of civilization we've been told is a lie. Long before the pyramids were raised, before the Nile found its path through the desert, the ancient texts speak of a man, or perhaps a god. His name was Thoth, the god of wisdom, the keeper of the written word, the one who remembered everything. Legends say Thoth carried with him the knowledge of a world that came before Egypt, a world drowned by a great flood. They called it Atlantis. When the waters rose, Thoth preserved its secrets, sealing them in emerald tablets hidden beneath the temples of a new civilization. In those texts, he spoke of a light that never dies, a power that connects heaven and earth through vibration, resonance, and sound. When the stars align, Thoth wrote, those who remember shall awaken the light once more. The Temple of Dendera bears his mark. The symbols of the serpent, the lotus, and the light all appear beside the sacred ibis, the bird of Thoth. Perhaps this temple was more than a shrine. Perhaps it was a library, a vault to preserve the knowledge of a lost age until humanity was ready to understand it again. The question is, who built it? The Egyptians? Or the survivors of a world we've forgotten, a world that lit its cities with the power of the gods? If that's true, then maybe the Dendera Light isn't the beginning of electricity. It's the last remaining memory of when mankind once held the stars in its hands. Maybe the Dendera Light was never about electricity. Maybe it was about something deeper, a message carved in stone, waiting for us to find it when we were ready. A reminder that knowledge is not owned by any one civilization. It rises, it falls, it sleeps beneath the sand. And then, when the time is right, it wakes again. Humanity believes we are the first to master power. But what if we are only remembering what the ancients once knew and lost? The Dendera Light may not prove that Egypt had electricity, but it proves something far greater. That light, real or symbolic, has always been within us. It's the spark of memory, the pulse of truth, the resonance between what was and what will be again. In the shadows of Dendera, the light never truly went out. It's still there, waiting for us to turn it back on. The Dendera Light wasn't just a symbol. It was a message from a world that once knew more than we do. They left their wisdom in stone for those who would one day listen. If you believe some truths were never meant to be forgotten, follow Hidden History Unlocked, because the truth isn't lost, it's hidden. Hidden History Unlocked.